Welcome to the deep dive. We take complex stuff and, well, try to make it clearer. Imagine a world where we could stop animal diseases before they even start, or make painful things farmers have to do just unnecessary. Today, that's where we're heading. We're diving into the power of tweaking life's code genetic editing in animals. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, it's a deep dive into genetic editing, specifically in veterinary medicine. And really at its core, it's about making very specific changes to an animal's DNA. Maybe to get traits we want or fix genetic problems. But the really striking thing is how broad the impact is. It touches animal health, sure, but also their welfare, and even bigger things like food security and our own health.
And when people talk genetic editing now, you pretty much always hear one name, right? CRISPR-Cas9. They call it molecular scissors. Sounds incredibly precise. So our mission today for you listening is to really understand what this is, see what it's already doing out there, what the big benefits are, and importantly, what the challenges are too. It's moving so fast. So let's begin.
Okay, you said precisely altering DNA. Can you give us a better picture? What does genetic editing actually, look like in the lab? It sounds so huge.
That's a good place to start. Because it sounds grand, but the practice is about being incredibly specific. It's not just one thing, genetic editing. It's more like a toolkit, a set of technologies.
Yeah.
And these tools let scientists make very targeted changes. We mean adding something, taking something out, or just tweaking the existing genetic material, but at a very precise spot in the genome. That's really different from older ways of doing genetic modification. Those are often kind of random, inserting foreign DNA almost anywhere. This modern precision, well, it cuts down massively on unexpected changes, makes the results much more predictable. Right, predictability. And that big leap in precision, that seems to be CRISPR-Cas9. This is where it gets really interesting. What makes CRISPR such a game changer?
CRISPR-Cas9 absolutely turned things upside down, mostly because it made this sophisticated stuff much more accessible. The backstory is pretty cool, too. It actually comes from bacteria. It's part of their immune system, believe it or not.
Right.
They used it to find and chop up DNA from viruses that attack them. Scientists figured out how to harness that. So now they design a little molecule called a guide RNA. Think of it like a GPS. It takes an enzyme, Cas9, those are the scissors, directly to a specific DNA sequence you want to change. Cas9 makes a clean cut. And then, really cleverly, the cell's own repair systems kick in. And you can sort of trick those repair systems into inserting, deleting, or swapping out DNA right at that cut site. The fact that it's relatively fast, cheaper, accurate, and just plain efficient, that's what really democratized the whole field. It sped everything up immensely.
Wow, democratized. That speed and precision, it does sound incredible. So let's talk impact, real world. We hear about gene editing for human diseases, but what about animals? How's it being used against, say, those nasty diseases in livestock?
Yeah, it's offering a really powerful, proactive way to fight those infectious diseases. Diseases that cost a fortune and cause a lot of animal suffering, Instead of just reacting when there's an outbreak, we can actually build resistance into the animals genetically, enhance their natural defenses. Take pigs, for instance. There's a virus, PRSV, porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome virus, causes huge problems. Using CRISPR, scientists have silenced the gene called CD163. That gene makes a receptor the virus uses to get into pig cells. You knock that out, you see much less spread of the virus, and more pigs survive. It's pretty effective. And they're also working on engineering pigs to resist African swine fever, ASF, another really terrible disease. They're targeting specific viral genes for that.
So you're basically immunizing them genetically before they even encounter the disease. That's quite a shift. What about other animals? Poultry, cattle?
Yep, same idea. In poultry, researchers are identifying genes linked to resistance against avian influenza, bird flu, and they're disrupting other genes to make chicken cells resistant to avian leukosis virus, ALV, which causes tumors. For dairy cows, there's some really interesting work inserting a human gene. This gene produces lysozyme, which is an antibacterial enzyme. The hope is it could help cows resist bovine mastitis. That's a common and costly udder infection. And in cattle, other gene edits, like knocking out genes called PRMP or NRAMP1, they've shown these cattle are less likely to get things like BSE mad cow disease or tuberculosis. So you see, it's a fundamental move away from just treating diseases to actually building resistance right into the animal's genetic code.
That is fundamental. But what does that mean for us beyond the farm? Why should someone listening care if a pig doesn't get PRRSV?
That's where the One Health idea really clicks in. It's all connected. If you have disease-resistant livestock, you naturally use fewer antibiotics. That's huge in the fight against antimicrobial resistance, AMR. That's a massive threat to human health, too. For farmers, obviously, it means fewer losses, lower vet bills,
Hmm.
better economics, and ultimately, if animal populations are more stable because they're resisting these big outbreaks, it helps global food security. It makes the food supply more reliable, more affordable for everyone.
It really shows that connection. Okay, so beyond just stopping diseases, can this tech improve other things? Animal traits, their welfare. It's not just about sickness, is it?
Not at all. And often it tackles welfare issues that have been around for ages. And it can do it much faster than traditional breeding. A great example, hornless cattle. Dairy cattle often have their horns removed when they're young. It's painful, stressful. But there's a natural gene, the polled gene, that makes cattle hornless. Using gene editing, you can precisely insert that polled gene. Result, calves born without horns. No need for dehorning. It's just a win-win. Animals don't suffer, farmers save time and trouble. There are also efforts looking at preventing boar taint. That's an unpleasant smell and taste you can get in meat from male pigs that haven't been castrated. If gene editing can prevent that, it might eliminate the need for surgical castration, another welfare concern. And then there's production efficiency, things like improving growth rates in pigs, maybe making them convert feed into muscle more efficiently. Sometimes that involves editing the myostatin gene. It normally puts the brakes on muscle growth. And thinking about climate change, people are developing gene-edited cows that can handle heat and humidity better, helping livestock adapt.
So it's improving efficiency, yes, but also directly preventing pain and making animals more comfortable. That's a powerful message.
What about the food itself? Can gene editing make, say, milk or eggs better or safer for us?
Definitely exploring that too. For instance, making hypoallergenic eggs. Reducing the proteins like ovalbumin that cause allergies for some people. Same idea with milk editing cows or goats to remove the gene for beta-lactoglobulin, another common allergen. There's even work on transgenic cows whose milk is, compositionally, much closer to human breast milk, maybe 80% similar. Huge potential nutritional implications there. So yeah, these kinds of innovations, they're really about proactively improving welfare and food quality and safety. It kind of shifts the perception of modern farming preventing issues rather than just managing them.
That makes sense. And we talked livestock food supply, but what about our pets? The animals in our homes, this must hit differently for people. Oh, absolutely. For companion animals, the potential is huge. It offers hope for treating genetic disorders that, honestly, we haven't had great answers for. Think about things like progressive retinal atrophy. It causes blindness in dogs and cats. Or hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a serious heart condition common in some cat breeds. Muscular dystrophy in dogs, various inherited forms of blindness. Gene editing offers a potential path to actually correct the underlying genetic defect. There have already been successful studies, for example, showing they can correct the mutation causing a form of muscular dystrophy in dogs. It offers the possibility of a real cure, not just managing symptoms. And I think this reflects how much pets are part of the family now, right? People want the same kind of advanced, potentially curative therapies for their pets that are being developed for humans.
That's incredible. Just the thought of preventing that kind of suffering in a family pet. Wow. Okay, are there even more surprising uses? Things beyond farms and vet clinics?
Oh yeah, the applications really stretch the imagination sometimes. Take xenotransplantation, that's a big one. Basically engineering pigs so their organs, hearts, kidneys could potentially be transplanted into humans. Gene editing is critical here. You need to modify the pig genes to prevent the human immune system from rejecting the organ, and also to eliminate any risk of transmitting pig viruses to the human recipient, like inactivating retroviruses that are naturally part of the pig's DNA. There's even progress on pigs that produce human insulin. Could be a game changer for diabetes treatment. Then you have things like ecological engineering using gene drives. These are engineered genetic elements that spread quickly through a population. The idea is you could use them to, say, control populations of malaria-carrying mosquitoes, or maybe invasive species that are damaging ecosystems. Very powerful, also very controversial. And in conservation, people talk about de-extinction, like bringing back woolly mammoths using gene editing in elephants. That's highly speculative, very long-term. But more practically, gene editing might help endangered species by maybe boosting their resistance to a deadly disease or increasing genetic diversity in small populations. So, yeah, it puts veterinary science right at the intersection of human health, food, biodiversity, tackling some really big global challenges.
Mind-boggling is the word. Xenotransplantation, de-extinction. So let's pull back a bit. What does all this mean? What are the big, clear upsides here? Why should you, listening, really care about this?
Okay, the benefits. Let's break them down. First, as we said, it's the precision and efficiency. CRISPR-Cas9 especially gives scientists incredible control over where they make changes. This drastically reduces off-target, affects mistakes where the DNA gets cut in the wrong place, and less mosaicism, which is where only some cells in the animal actually get the edit. This efficiency boost is huge. Like making a specific gene-edited mouse model used to take maybe over a year now. It can be done in, say, 6 to 8 months. Huge time and cost saving. Second, the direct improvements to animal health and welfare. We talked about disease resistance. Some reports suggest farms using CRISPR-edited livestock saw disease outbreaks drop by 40%. That's massive. And providing solutions for things like dehorning or castration is proactive welfare.
Healthier animals, treated more humanely, produced faster. That sounds like a really potent mix.
It is. And that leads straight to the third benefit, economic advantages. Fewer disease losses, better growth, better feed efficiency. It all lowers production costs for farmers, makes them more profitable, more competitive. It builds resilience, too, against threats like African swine fever that can wipe out industries. And finally, there are real benefits for public health and food security. Producing safer food like those gal-safe pigs whose meat doesn't cause allergic reactions in some people because an allergen gene was removed. And crucially, less disease means less need for antibiotics in livestock. That helps tackle antimicrobial resistance, AMR, which, as we said, is a major human health threat. It all feeds back into that one health idea. Healthier animals lead to healthier people and healthier environment, and it helps ensure a stable, sustainable food supply.
Okay, the potential is clearly enormous, but tools this powerful always come with challenges, right? What are the major roadblocks? What makes this difficult?
You hit it exactly. Huge potential, but significant hurdles too. On the technical side, well, it's still complex and expensive. I saw a figure that producing one gene-edited bull calf using CRISPR cost over $500,000 and took 5 years, with lots of failed attempts along the way. So it's not simple or cheap yet for large animals. And while precision is much better, there's still a risk of those off-target cuts, or mosaicism we mentioned, or insertional mutagenesis accidentally disrupting another important gene when the DNA is repaired. These can lead to unexpected health problems for the animal. Plus, livestock have long generation times. Cattle, for example, it can take 4 years or more to see results across multiple generations. Technology might move faster than the breeding cycle. And there's always the possibility that pathogens, the disease agents, could evolve to overcome the new genetic resistance. Nature adapts.
And the rules, the regulations, I bet that's a tricky area, especially with food animals moving across borders.
Well, it's a minefield. The global regulatory landscape is fragmented, to say the least. Very different approaches. Some countries, Argentina, Brazil, Japan, are examples they're leaning towards a more flexible product-based approach. If the final gene-edited animal doesn't contain foreign DNA, and the edit could have happened naturally or through conventional breeding, they might regulate it less strictly, more like a non-GMO. But then you look at the U.S. The FDA currently regulates gene-edited animals as new animal drugs under a law from, get this, 1938. It's based on the process of editing, not the final product. Many in the field see this as overly burdensome, creating a chilling effect on innovation because it demands these really long, expensive pre-market reviews. And think about it, only 3 genetically engineered food animals have actually made it to market approval in the U.S. so far. Aquadvantage salmon, gal-safe pigs, it's a tiny number. Then the European Union, they tend to classify these new genomic techniques, or NGTs, as GMOs. That means strict safety checks, authorization, labeling, traceability. It follows a strong precautionary principle. But they also face challenges like, how do you even detect an unauthorized gene-edited product if the edit is subtle? And concerns about how it impacts organic farming. It's complex everywhere.
Wow, that's a real patchwork. So if you're a farmer or a company, that divergence must create huge uncertainty, right?
Exactly. It makes the international trade difficult. It can discourage investment if you don't know if your product will be approved or accepted in key markets. It definitely slows things down and creates an uneven playing field globally.
And beyond the technical and regulatory, there are the ethics. We're talking about changing life itself. Those questions must loom large.
Immense. Animal welfare is a primary concern. Are there unintended negative effects on the animal's health or well-being? What about the large numbers of animals often needed for the research phase? There's also the debate around designer pets. Should we be editing animals just for looks? Germline editing changes that get passed down through generations is especially contentious. It's potentially irreversible, and future generations obviously can't consent. That raises deep ethical questions. Public perception is critical too. It can be heavily influenced by how risks are communicated, sometimes by misinformation. Building trust is essential but challenging. And finally, environmental risks. If gene-edited animals get into the wild, could they outcompete native species? Could the edited genes spread unpredictably? What are the long-term ecological impacts? These are big unknowns.
Definitely a lot to weigh up. So looking forward then, where is this technology heading next, and how do we navigate all these complexities responsibly?
Well, the tech itself keeps improving. We're seeing newer techniques like base editing and prime editing emerge. These promise even greater precision, potentially making changes without even needing to make double-strand cuts in the DNA, which might reduce some risks. We're also likely to see applications expanding further. More species, including in aquaculture, like maybe preventing diseases like white spot syndrome in shrimp, and more sophisticated uses in wildlife conservation, perhaps those gene drives for disease vectors, though that requires extreme caution.
So given all that, the increasing power and broadening scope,
Yeah.
what's the recipe for moving forward responsibly? How do we manage this?
It really has to be a combined effort. Everyone has a role. For policymakers, the push is towards risk-based regulation that focuses on the product, not just the process, and trying to harmonize rules internationally would help massively. Plus, governments need to fund basic research, including long-term studies on safety and ecological effects. For researchers, the focus has to be on continuing to improve safety and minimizing off-target effects. Maybe using whole genome sequencing to double-check everything. Developing better, less invasive ways to deliver the edits. And crucially, engaging openly in ethical discussions. Transparency is key. Industry. They need to invest strategically, maybe prioritizing edits that clearly improve animal welfare or offer significant sustainability benefits. They also need to be transparent with regulators and the public and collaborate. And finally, public engagement. We need informed public dialogue. That means education, clear communication about benefits and risks, focusing on concrete things like animal well-being, food safety, sustainability. That's how you build trust.
It's been fascinating. This deep dive really underscores the most unbelievable potential here for animals, for us, for the planet, but also clearly a path that needs to be walked very carefully, very thoughtfully, with everyone involved talking to each other.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Given this incredible power we now have, the power to reshape not just single animals, but potentially whole ecosystems, what new ethical responsibilities does that place on us as a society? How do we collectively decide the future direction of life on Earth?